It began as a routine political discussion, but quickly turned into one of the most talked about confrontations in recent memory. Jasmine Crockett, a rising voice in the political sphere, entered the forum with confidence and conviction. Known for her outspoken nature and bold criticism of opposition views, she targeted J.D. Vance, a senator gaining increasing influence through his carefully calculated policy stance and media presence. As the cameras rolled and the room filled with anticipation, Crockett launched her line of questions with clear intensity. She accused Vance of holding outdated values, disconnected from the needs of the working class. Her approach was direct and meant to put him on the defensive. For a few moments, it appeared she had seized the momentum. The tone, the fire in her voice, the determination, it looked like she had the upper hand. But then, as J.D. Vance leaned into the microphone to respond, everything changed. His demeanor was calm, unshaken, and entirely focused. What followed was a methodical, sharp, and unexpectedly powerful clapback that not only reversed the tone of the exchange but left a lasting impact on the audience and everyone watching at home. J.D. Vance didn't immediately counter with emotion. Instead, he acknowledged Crockett's energy and pivoted to facts. With each of her accusations, he laid down a trail of counter-evidence that made the audience shift in their seats. He started by correcting her interpretation of his past statements and used direct quotes from official records to highlight misrepresentation. With all due respect, he began, "You're entitled to your opinion, but not your own facts." That line alone garnered immediate reaction, but he continued without pause. He referenced bipartisan legislation he had supported, community projects he had visited, and demographic reports showing the impact of his work. Crockett attempted to interject, but Vance remained poised and held his time. His tone wasn't aggressive, it was confident, sharpened by preparation. Each point he made dismantled the prior argument step by step, not by dismissing her passion, but by showing how passion without precision falls short in serious discourse. What he offered wasn't just a defense, it was a takedown, layered with calmness and intellectual control. Crockett, realizing the direction had shifted, tried to adjust her strategy midway. She focused her energy on emotional appeals and referenced systemic issues and historical struggles. Her voice echoed with frustration, attempting to portray Vance as disconnected and unaware of the deep roots of inequality. But Vance didn't take the bait. Instead, he recognized the legitimacy of some of the concerns she raised and then dissected them from a policy perspective. He explained how merely highlighting problems doesn't create solutions, a legislation does. He went on to explain how his proposed amendments addressed the very points she raised, but in ways grounded in action rather than rhetoric. The audience watched closely. Commentators, staffers, and viewers online noticed the gap forming between argument and rebuttal. Vance had transformed the moment into a masterclass in disciplined debating. Crockett had passion, but Vance had precision. It became clear that she had underestimated not just his policy knowledge, but his ability to counter on the national stage. As the conversation continued, Vance took a bold step. He cited previous statements made by Crockett herself that contradicted the arguments she was making during the session. It was a strategic move that caught her visibly off guard. She responded by questioning the context, but Vance was readier. He had the context printed, sourced, and time-stamped. "This is your quote, from your podcast interview last September," he said. He read the line slowly, then looked up. "I don't believe in weaponizing words, but I do believe in accountability." Crockett's frustration grew. Her body language reflected tension, and her voice cracked slightly as she responded. While she continued to fight for her viewpoint, her ability to control the narrative had slipped. Vance, on the other hand, was now firmly in command. His arguments were not flashy, but they were surgical. He took apart claims with logic, backing each with statistics and precedent. He wasn't just countering her, he was neutralizing, and the gap between challenger and target began to widen with each passing moment. The hearing reached a tipping point when Crockett attempted to pivot the conversation to a broader indictment of conservative ideology. linking Vance to national trends she opposed. She referenced policies outside his direct influence and tried to associate him with their failings. But again, Vance returned to focus. He politely redirected the conversation to his actual record, stating, "If you're going to critique me, at least critique what I've actually done." Then he listed policy details: the funding he secured, votes he cast, town halls he hosted. His method was grounded and unimpeachable. Crockett tried one last emotional push, invoking the pain of families left behind by politics. It resonated with the crowd momentarily, but Vance's response sealed the moment. He said, "Pain deserves more than performance. It deserves policy that works." That single sentence became the moment's defining quote. The room fell silent. For every sharp word Crockett had delivered, Vance had a sharper reply. The difference? His were backed by evidence, and hers had begun to appear rehearsed. The clash had shifted from confrontation to lesson. News outlets quickly seized upon the confrontation. Clips spread across platforms: YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. Pundits from both sides dissected the exchange, frame by frame. Some called Crockett's approach brave, while others said it was careless. Most agreed that Vance had emerged more favorably, if not victorious. The hashtags #JDVance Clapback and #Crockett vs Vance began trending. Commentary shows played the hearing on loop, highlighting the most impactful lines. For political observers, it wasn't just about who said what, it was about delivery, presence, and reaction under pressure. Vance's approach reminded viewers of old school debating: a calm under fire, relentless in logic. Crockett, known for her fearless tone, now faced questions about whether that same tone had hindered her effectiveness in this instance. This wasn't just a disagreement, it was a viral political moment that redefined both figures in the public eye. And in the world of fast-moving media narratives, moments like these last longer than policies ever do. In response, Crockett released a public statement the following day, doubling down on her values and reiterating the importance of speaking truth to power. She framed the exchange as an example of the emotional labor required to advocate for justice. Her base responded with support, but political analysts noted the damage had been done. Her points, though passionately made, had been refuted in real time with evidence. Vance, meanwhile, didn't issue a statement at all. His team didn't post memes or shout victory online. They simply let the footage speak for itself. That silence became strategic. It allowed viewers to interpret the moment unfiltered. Political commentators praised his discipline. In many ways, this silence made a louder statement than any victory lap ever could. Crockett had arrived prepared to confront. Vance had arrived prepared to dominate the debate. And the difference between those intentions was the defining feature of the encounter. In political terms, what happened between Jasmine Crockett and J.D. Vance wasn't just a disagreement, it was a pivotal narrative shift. For Vance, it proved that he could hold his ground against a vocal and aggressive challenger. It showed his growth from a controversial author to a disciplined policymaker. For Crockett, it was a reminder of how tough national scrutiny can be, and how vital it is to balance passion with preparation. No one denied her courage here, but courage alone, without thorough preparation, isn't enough in a high-stakes environment. Both figures walked away with lessons. One gained broader respect, the other a more complex perception. What happened that day in front of the cameras wasn't just about policy, it was about readiness, composure, and the cost of underestimating an opponent who came ready for more than just a conversation. Looking back, this moment between Jasmine Crockett and J.D. Vance will be remembered not only for its fiery exchange but for how quickly it escalated from challenge to reversal. Crockett, despite her efforts, walked into a confrontation where emotion met preparation and preparation won. Vance left the room with his credibility enhanced, his composure intact, and a new layer to his public persona. The lesson: in today's world, where every political exchange is recorded, replayed, and dissected endlessly, being right isn't an or-if, you have to be ready. And on that day, J.D. Vance was ready. He didn't shout, he didn't boast, he delivered. And the country watched.